All right, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not mad, you're not paying attention, folks. This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, and I'm coming to you on Monday, the 29th of October, and we've got something extremely important to talk about, folks. This is going to be one of the more important broadcasts that we've had, and you know they're all important, but this one's very important, folks. Very important. And let me tell you why. Because while the news is full of all kinds of stories about things that allegedly have taken place, I can tell you right now, what the news is not talking about is a story that I've been following for quite some time that is so unbelievably dangerous that it should be the front page of every newspaper in the United States. It should be the talk radio topic on every talk radio station. It should be the topic worldwide right now. Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on with the microwave and millimeter wave weaponry deployment took place in our Cuban embassy, and it involved no less than 26 United States diplomats and spies in Cuba. And these people were the victims of electromagnetic weaponry. Now, I'm bringing this up because as they drown us in rhetoric of plastic pipe bombs and all of the caravan and, you know, this tragedy that took place in Pennsylvania, if it even took place at all, I don't know. I can't confirm. I know they were running a drill in Pennsylvania, 4 hours away. That I've confirmed. But what I'm here to tell you is that they have a technology that is so sinister and so dangerous and so powerful that they've been playing with. And I know of 3 places, actually 4 places, that this stuff has been played with. The first place was in our Cuban embassy, ladies and gentlemen. Another place is in a building in China that involved a woman named Catherine Werner. She was in a diplomatic post in China. And then we have children at a junior high school in Texas and a high school in New York who were all the victims of electromagnetic warfare. WIKIJOE, millimeter waves, folks. All of the symptoms are very similar. And from the Cuban embassy to the Chinese diplomat to the school children, the symptoms are all the same. Headache, vomiting, nausea, paralysis, disorientation, memory loss. And in the case of the diplomats and spies and ambassadors in Cuba and this gal in China, medically verified that brain injuries took place. Medically verified by medical doctors that changes to the brain structure and function were observed, and yet the Trump administration refuses to do anything about this. This is an issue of national security, folks. This endangers every man, woman, and child in the United States of America because the Trump administration is in the midst of rushing to deploy weaponized millimeter wave communication systems called 5G everywhere in the United States of America. And he's made a national priority of $50 billion pledges to put it in rural America as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this technology is a psychotronic electronic voodoo doll system. We cannot let them deploy this stuff everywhere. Here's where you and I come in, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, they blame Russia on these mystery attacks on the diplomat. They blame it on the Cuban government. This gal in China, she even brought dogs in because they thought people were doing stuff to her house. The dogs started, like, you know, coughing up blood, pissing in their bowl, their water bowl. I mean, it was even affecting the animals. Look, folks, they have the technology. They have the technology to harm us. But here's where we come in, folks. We don't bring it into our house. We don't let them install it on our property. We don't let them install it in the schools. We don't let them install it in the churches. We don't let them install it in the boardrooms, in the classrooms, in the workplaces. The new Wi-Fi WIKIJOE systems, that is what we need to stop, ladies and gentlemen. 5G must be stopped. It was stopped in England. The courts ruled it. In England, they ruled in favor of the people. It's been stopped in Northern California. We must fight this 5G tooth and nail. And I mean all the way to the wall, folks. You know, this woman worked with the Commerce Department's commercial service and figured her harassment was due to her work on high-profile U.S. trade issues with China. And, you know, whether or not that's the case, I can tell you right now that the bottom line is she was harassed electronically. That's right. Really scary stuff, folks. These millimeter waves. I'm going to do a more in-detail analysis of this, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. But, you know, they were doing brain scans on these people, and these medical doctors, they showed, the medical doctors that analyzed Miss Werner in China, the test showed multiple deficits similar to the Cuban cohort that was being examined. These are doctors confirming that she sustained brain injury. That's right, folks. She wasn't hit over the head by her boyfriend because she wasn't living with her boyfriend. No, she didn't slip and fall after a bottle of tequila because she wasn't in China getting hammered. She was getting electrocuted by weaponry. These are psychotronic weapons, folks. And they can target people with them. They're going to target everybody. Not just somebody here and there, tippity square. They're going to go after everybody with this stuff. But you can't bring it into your house. I've been telling you, you know, I've been screaming from the rooftops in Fullerton for the better part of 5 years to not bring this weaponry into the classrooms. And what do you stupid parents do when I'm standing out on the sidewalk with these huge banners explaining how all this microwave weaponry causes cancer, infertility, ADHD, or worse? I even had a big banner made up of a brain scan of a rat that was done before and after chronic Wi-Fi exposure. And you could see the reactive oxygen species on the stains in the assay that was done on this rat's brain. Folks, you know what those parents did? They called the cops on me. They drove by and made fun of me. They get on the next door neighbor app and call me crazy as they dump their kids into these classrooms to get electrocuted. Bunch of scumbags turning your backs on your own children. Well, guess what? Now the big stuff's getting rolled out. That's right, as I drive next to a church that's got a big cell tower on top of it underneath the cross. Go figure that one out. It's pretty common, by the way. They hide these cell towers inside these phallic symbols, these obelisks, and they stick a cross on top of it. That's satanic, isn't it, folks? Putting a cross on top of the weaponry. Anyway, so, you know, the joke's on all you people that think it's funny to have your children in a high school classroom now that has sheet metal walls, that has wireless access points that are designed to run 200 and 300 devices. Do you know how much power those things are putting out? And is it any wonder why the district's legal staff won't let me come in and tour the classrooms and tour the schools and let me take readings? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of everybody knowing how they're electrocuting the kids. By the way, give Will Minster a call over at Troy High School and let him know your displeasure with how they will not allow Mr. and Brianna to go in and do measurements of how they're electrocuting these kids. That's right, they got sheet metal walls at Troy High School. One of the teachers just died of breast cancer. My next door neighbor just had a big tumor cut out of the side of his head. He's working, and he's the one that pushed for the Wi-Fi to come in there. His name is Jesse Knowles. Give him a call. Look him up on the Troy High School website, and let Mr. Knowles know what you think of his promoting of wireless technology in the Fullerton Joint Union High School District. He's so in love with it, he actually had a happy party at his house and had a presentation on Wi-Fi Safe is what it was called, and he had a doctor show up in a wheelchair that got sent home from a camping trip by a mosquito to tell everybody I'm crazy. In the meantime, the National Toxicology Report came out and proved that there was a correlation between microwave exposure and cancer of the heart in rats, and there's all kinds of studies out there, folks. I don't need to digress. I just want to name some of these players. But you know, they've got this stuff ready to roll, folks. And they've been licking their chops for a long time for these hours that we face. They're ramping it up, folks. They got the pedal to the metal for 5G. That's right. You know, it's amazing. I live on a street where I live. We got one of the guys on the street made sure that all the Wi-Fi went into all the junior colleges, because he's the retired chancellor of the North Orange County Community College District. And, you know, he made sure all the wireless technology went in, and I think he's just, you know, collecting his pension and, you know, cutting his grass or whatever. But, you know, he's turned his back on the kids. And then the guy next door to me and his wife actually started a foundation at the elementary school, and they gave tons and tons of money to the school district to buy iPads to irradiate these kids. And they basically held a function at their house right next door to me, making fun of me, making fun of the information that I put forward about what all this microwave weaponry is doing to the kids. That's right, folks. You know, when you say you gotta love your neighbor, boy do you ever, especially when they're involved in harming children. But now they're going to harm the adults, folks, because the stuff that we're talking about here is big time, really horrible stuff. This stuff in the short term caused brain damage to these diplomats, to these embassy workers in the last 2 years. We're not talking about something that was done in the 60s when the Soviets were perfecting this technology. And by the way, the Soviets are the experts in what this stuff does. That's why they don't have Wi-Fi in schools in the Soviet Union. And by the way, since we're on the topic of foreign countries, why is it that 5G was invented in Israel and is not being deployed in Israel? Does anybody have an answer to that? Because I still have not had one response with a satisfactory explanation as to why Israel's not getting 5G for at least 5 more years, according to the trade publications that have their connections to the industry, including DARPA and all the telecom companies. So why is it? Well, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that if they have the ability to beam this stuff through walls in apartment buildings in Cuba and embassies in China and everything, they got the ability to turn your WIKIJOE and your smart appliances and your smart meter and that cell phone tower against you too. They got all kinds of technology, folks. You think that these guys are rolling out all this fun stuff to make you have a good time? Really? As they teach your children that the world's overpopulated and that we're running out of everything? That's right. You really think that when they show your children images of garbage dumps and smokestacks and seagulls flying all over these piles of garbage with the bulldozers going, and they show the rivers full of a bunch of flat tires and shopping carts and all polluted, and they show these people picking through food in a garbage dump in India, and that's what the whole world frickin' looks like? Well, you know why they're doing that? Because they want everybody crammed into these compact cities and into these apartments so they can turn the weapons on them. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That is the plan. That is the plan, Stan. They got a big plan, and that is they take these 180 IQ kids that they import from all over the world, put them up on a 10-year bed and breakfast program on taxpayer dime, and then dump them into a think tank to make the weaponry when they're finished. That's right. Where do you think they get these things made from? You get compartmentalized, weaponized idiots with high IQs to not talk to the guy on the other side of the room, to realize what they're working on is something to kill their grandma and all the rest of us at the same time. It's hammer time, folks. It's hammer time not just for the TV. It's hammer time for all the wireless devices in your home. Now, how many of you got autistic children out there who are in love with your technology? It's got Wi-Fi and cordless phones. Get all the cordless stuff out of your house. Get all the wireless stuff out of your house. Every single wireless device has a backdoor that can be dialed in. They can mess with the frequencies. They can snoop on you. They can hack your stuff. But the new stuff that's coming out, that's right, the new stuff, this really super slick, they're trying to make you where you line up at 2 o'clock in the morning in front of Best Buy for the latest and the greatest iPhone 6066 or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about, folks. That's the stuff, this new 5G stuff. They want you to have a hunger and a desire and a lust for this satanic technocracy toolkit called 5G and all the devices, and they tell you, oh, you'll be able to download a movie in 2 seconds. Who the hell needs to download a movie? Who has time to watch a stupid movie? We're all working and trying to raise our families. You know who has time to do that? The children, instead of doing their homework. Well, that's what they want. They want the kids watching more evil, vile crap. Look, folks, they're selling you a bill of goods to con you into accepting the weapons grid. This stuff that went on in the embassy in Cuba, this stuff that went on in that building in China where our State Department worker was housed, this stuff that happened to her family member that went out to visit her, this stuff that happened to her dogs. It ain't normal for dogs to start to cough up blood and piss in their water bowl all the time. And it's not normal for people to hear humming and feel pressure waves go over their bodies and start bumping into things and forgetting things and start having brain damage that shows up on CT scans. That's not normal, folks, unless someone's walking around hitting them over the head with a baseball bat. And that wasn't what was going on. Why am I so upset? Because they're not talking about this, and Donald Trump won't do anything about this, and these are cabinet level people that are being harmed by this stuff. So we got these fake pipe bombs or real pipe bombs, whatever they are. I don't know what they are. I've never seen them before, but you know, some guy supposedly driving around in a pedo van with a bunch of stickers all over it, tinted up windows. I mean, how in the world did this guy get packages delivered to all these high-level people? Are you kidding me? You tell me anybody can mail Hillary Clinton a package and she's going to get it without anybody looking at it? Come on. You really believe that? You know, the stuff they put on TV, I don't know if I believe any of it anymore. Ever since we went to digital communication systems, you can't tell if it's a green screen or not. You don't know what they're showing you, if it's true or not. Heck, half the stuff on TV is a bunch of lies. I mean, they're green screening all the NASA stuff now. I mean, that's before they got caught filming the Mars rover on Greenland somewhere. I mean, there are videos out there on Google Earth that showed the rover and all the terrain that's supposedly on Mars. I mean, it's all a joke, folks. But it's really dangerous because they're not talking about this stuff. This stuff is really dangerous. They've got the situation now at hand where they've gotten all these idiots on these city councils and county commissions to install all the LED lights on the light poles, which are going to connect right into these 5G systems, which are going to provide the black body radiation for the scanning, you know, of all the areas. They're going to have 3D imaging, you know, thermographic imagery everywhere, three-dimensional 24/7. There'll be microphones, and this stuff will be beaming through the walls if you don't have the right stuff protecting your house, as long as you have the 5G compatible WIKIJOE access points. Look, they did this stuff in a school in Texas, a junior high. Everybody started getting sick and headaches and dizziness and collapsing and forgetting stuff. And they called it dirty sock syndrome. And there's a school in New York where all these girls got paralyzed and they said it was a mental illness. This is what they do, folks. They give you pipe bombs And pornography, that's right, folks. Shut your TV off. It's hammer time for the TV. It's hammer time for the Wi-Fi systems. Start buying Ethernet cables and do not buy any smart appliances. Get everything out of your house that says smart, because it's making you stupid. We got big problems, folks. We got big problems. This embassy experiment that was conducted on these American citizens is an act of war against Americans. And we've got at least 27 people that were microwave targeted or millimeter wave targeted that's fully documented in the medical literature. And the President of the United States will not raise this issue of national security. Because if they can do this to our people overseas, heck, didn't we go into Iran over the hostages? Didn't we invade a country over our embassy workers? But yet in our embassy in Cuba, it's okay to run medical experiments on them and not hold anybody accountable and not investigate it. And then when it is investigated by medical personnel, when there's documented evidence that they've had brain damage by an unknown source, and all evidence points to electromagnetic warfare, and our government does nothing, what does that tell you? It's telling me that they got plans to use it on all of us, and that these poor people were just the test subjects in the early stages of the development and the perfection of the weaponry. And so now they want you to get Netflix while you're taking a dump in your bathroom at lightning speeds, or play video games with your virtual reality headset on while those Hot Pockets sizzle and grizzle in the microwave. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. They want you to think that all this technology is for your comfort, that these accoutrements are for your advantage. No, ladies and gentlemen, these demonic devices are designed as a detriment to destroy you. But the only way they can kill you is with your permission. You've got to bring the weaponry in. And like I said, this is where we all come in. We say hell no, and we don't bring it into the house. You know, good friend of mine, Grindall61, if you're not a subscriber to his channel, I suggest you subscribe. Put up an excellent video today about how an insurance company has a commercial out there that's got this kid with a virtual reality headset on. His parents have just lost communication. That's what they're doing to all these kids. Can you imagine what's going to happen with the millimeter wave 5G and WIKIJOE systems in the home with the virtual reality? You're going to lose all your kids. They're going to end up on psychotropics. Do you remember that movie that was out a while ago? It was about some nonsense about people going to another planet where, you know, it was like all these trees and plants. I forget what it was. And it was a 3D movie, a virtual. People ended up having been diagnosed with depression after seeing this movie. I forget the name of it. Avatar, was that what it was called? Avatar, I think. I'll be honest with you, folks. The last movie I saw was Titanic in 1997, and that's right after I started becoming a Christian, and I realized, hey, man, you know, you can't go on a cruise ship and cheat on your wife and cheat on your husband, and go down below the deck and get it on in some car down there, and then jump off the back of the boat and commit suicide and go to heaven and spend eternity with each other. But that's what the Illuminati slave queen, what was her name, Celine Dion? That's what she sang about all the time, and they drilled that crap into our heads for another 10 years after that movie was drilled into our heads for the last 15. That's right, they made that movie an epic smash, right? When the message was evidently clear that adultery and fornication and suicide is rewarded with eternal life according to Lucifer. Because Lucifer controls Hollywood, folks. And the music industry. And these entertainers. That's right. And the prince of the power of the air's got his weapons aimed at your family right now at school. Possibly at home. He's got more weapons aimed at them that are coming as soon as the Verizon or the AT&T subcontractor shows up in front of your house saying, I need to come on your yard and install these antennas. And you say, hell no, you're not coming on my property. You're not, and you drag your feet and you make it as difficult as possible. And for all you people out there working for these telecom companies, man, you know, it's amazing what I got on my street. I even got somebody that's making a living off of working for the devil with Verizon. And they're just turning their back on everything. It's no wonder why when I present this information to these parents about what's being done with the iPads and the wireless and all this stuff in the schools and what's being done to these children, that the people who work for the school district or the college district or the wireless telecom companies, they don't care. They don't want to believe it. They just ignore the information and write me off as a lunatic. Well, the joke's on their kids, folks. It's not on me. The joke's on their kids, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The joke is on the children. We are in danger, ladies and gentlemen. We are in danger. What do we do? What do we do, folks? Well, we're going to go into a little more detail here. I'm going to read over this because this is extremely important. This is reported today by NBC News. Now, I want to tell you something. The news and the media always has to maintain some level of credibility. And how they always operate is when there's a huge story, and we got 3 of them going right now. These alleged pipe bombs and attacks on these churches, and then the school, and then this caravan. These are all taking center stage right now. And if there was any loss of life in any of these things, it's a tragedy, because I want to tell you something. As a follower of Jesus Christ, murder is a capital offense, and thou shalt not murder is what the Bible says. The taking of innocent life is a pretty bad thing, folks. I mean, you cannot get higher up on the totem pole than that. And let me tell you something. It is possible that if you commit murder, that you may not be forgiven, because if you allow yourself to get into such a satanic trance that you take an innocent life, it is possible that you will never be let out of that satanic trance to accept Jesus Christ. So that's an extremely powerful deception and a form of spiritual bondage over people. And I don't advocate any type of violence whatsoever, folks. Ever! Unless we're forced into a corner and they cross the line. Mi casa es mi castle, folks. And, you know, if you come into my house and you try to harm me or my children, then I do have a right to self-defense, because there is a difference between murder and killing in self-defense, ladies and gentlemen. Now, so the media is not talking about this, even though NBC put this out today. We have a woman who was in the Guangzhou part of China, and she had these sensations night after night for months. Her health began declining, and she was feeling vomiting, headaches, loss of balance. She chalked it up to bad air and bad water, which is what they all do, and that's what happens here when the kids start reporting these symptoms at this junior high school in Texas. They start testing the water and they start testing the air. So the mother went out there and was flown out there and started staying with her. The mother got sick too. And they found a vision disorder, a balance disorder, and an organic brain injury. And this diagnosis was similar to those of the 26 diplomats and spies in Cuba who started hearing strange sounds and falling ill in 2016. So, the State Department issued a health alert that it had medical confirmation that this worker in China was affected. Here's a picture of her, ladies and gentlemen. Can you see her picture? This is the woman that was in China. This is a real human being. Her name is Kathleen Werner. She held a diplomatic post in China. The first comprehensive account of this extraordinary chain of events set off by a suspected health attack. They call this a health attack, folks. It was a written testimonial from her mother to members of Congress. It was obtained by NBC News and internal State Department documents, recorded conversations, and other interviews. They reviewed hundreds of pages of medical records of government workers evacuated from both Cuba and China, including those the United States has medically confirmed were attacked. The United States has confirmed that its people were medically attacked. For the past 18 months, more than 24 diplomatic staffers once stationed in Cuba and China have endured an ordeal that is equal part medical mystery, political standoff, and bureaucratic muddle. Of course, Cuba and China deny any role. And now they suspect Russia. Here's a little bit of coverage, you know. Some diplomats and their doctors are telling NBC that they have growing concerns that the U.S. is trying to downplay whatever happened, at least in China. Equally upsetting to the diplomatic evacuees, suspected incidents of harassment and break-ins they say have occurred since returning to the United States. 4 U.S. officials report that the FBI has investigated. These people are being now harassed and attacked in their homes in the United States. Here's this woman who was in China, and even her dogs got sick, folks. She was a victim of electromagnetic warfare, targeted individual. She worked with the Commerce Department and figured the harassment was due to her work on high-profile trade issues with China. This is amazing, folks. Here's a copy of the Embassy of the United States of America in Cuba. Okay? Now, remember, we invaded a country over our ambassadors back in the 70s, trying to rescue them, and yet we let these guys get attacked and tortured in Cuba. So this is her mother talking about, my once beautifully articulate, intelligent, and thoughtful daughter had been reduced to a shell of her former self. She wrote this letter to Congress. And when the mother went out there, she said she heard the sounds too, the high-pitched and the low-pitched, along with the pulsing pressure that felt like a wave washing through her body. She soon too developed the headaches, the nausea, and the problems concentrating. This is psychotronic warfare, folks. So she and her daughter became convinced the dogs were being poisoned after they started regurgitating blood and finding the dog's water bowls filled with urine. So she pleaded with her daughter to come home. Her daughter didn't want to leave her job with the State Department over there, but finally they got her to come home. Her health deteriorated so bad, they referred her to State Department doctors. And of course, they did brain scans on her, ladies and gentlemen. This is really important. A week later, they gave her a series of tests called HABIT, the short for Havana Acquired Brain Injury Tool. They got a name for this, folks. Havana Acquired Brain Injury Tool. Can you believe this? HABIT? Havana Acquired Brain Injury Tool. These people in Havana got brain damage from these millimeter wave and microwave systems. This was a brain injury tool that was developed in response to the mysterious illness reported by diplomatic staff in Cuba. 26 staffers had complained of symptoms that included hearing and memory loss and headaches after hearing strange noises and feeling vibrations coming from a specific direction, and always in hotel rooms or in their homes. Some Canadian diplomats were affected too. Holy mackerel. The State Department medical staff have been trained to administer the triage test if diplomats report suspicious sounds or symptoms. The exams include memory tests like recalling strings of numbers and balance tests like standing on one leg. And 4 U.S. officials told NBC News those who fail are sent for more advanced testing at the Penn Center for Brain Injury and Repair at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Oh, interesting. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The HABIT test given in China showed multiple deficits similar to those in the Cuba cohort. In other words, this test found the same crap wrong with her that they found in all these people from Cuba. So a week later, she was sent to Penn, where dozens of doctors performed tests to identify the possible cause. Doctors even administered a spinal tap to rule out nervous system disease. Here's the Havana Embassy. See that? Records show she tested below. Listen to this. This is a bright, intelligent woman working for the State Department and Department of Commerce. Records show she tested below the 5th percentile on developmental eye movement exam. A psychological evaluation found problems with motor functioning and visual perception, with clear evidence of decreases in functioning from pre-injury likely. An MRI found scattered supranatorial white matter lesions, mild but more than typical for age. She got brain damage, folks. This woman got brain damage from psychotronic, microwave, and millimeter wave weaponry. Her findings were similar enough to the Cuba patients that the State Department officials felt they had no choice but to warn the public. So 40 days after this woman got to Philadelphia, the U.S. issued a health alert. The medical indications are very similar and entirely consistent with medical indications were taking place the Americans working in Cuba. This secretary told the congressional panel. Here's another picture of this bright young lady, okay? U.S. medical teams were dispatched to the embassy and 5 consulates to test any diplomat or family member associated with concerns. State Department officials said there were 300 being tested, including those in China, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing. After confirming her medical issues, Werner's medical issues, the State Department agreed to pay for her mother to be tested too by the same physician, blah, blah, blah. When she returned from China, her mother had tried to hide her newfound struggle with recalling words from her husband. In other words, this woman comes back from China trying to rescue her daughter, and then the woman can't even remember words. She's got brain damage too. She grew particularly alarmed when she discovered she couldn't remember the names of her family pets. They're giving her amnesia. They're giving her Alzheimer's. And check this out. An MRI of her mother's brain in June found chronic small vessel ischemic changes, more than expected for age. Additional neuroimaging found scattered foci of abnormal signal and white matter. And an evaluation listed acquired brain injury on her problem list. Brain injury on the list, folks. A neuropsychologist wrote that she continues to experience persistent cognitive impairments, cognitive weaknesses, and variable functions after a number of environmental exposures in China. Notice how they don't say that they're psychotronic weaponry. Here's the place in China, folks. This is unbelievable. I cannot believe what's going on here. An optometrist, the same one who evaluated the Cuba patients, found similar visual deficits to the gal in China, Werner, writing that they were most likely the result of her exposures in China. So the people in Cuba had the same problems with their eyes. What do millimeter waves do to the eyes, folks? We know that it damages the eyes. The caption here says it's real, it happened. The medevac flights that whisked Americans out of Cuba and China marked the end of our first chapter in a harrowing ordeal. When they got back to the U.S., new challenges awaited. They struggled to determine who's going to pay for their travel bills, their medical bills, blah, blah, blah. So, here's this. Does this look like someone that should be having brain damage from going to China and having a job in the Department of Commerce? She was 31 years old, folks. An attractive woman in the prime of her life, intelligent, bright woman, coming back with brain damage from some psychotronic weaponry. And the same thing happened to the people in Cuba. In Washington, editorials and comments by Cuba-friendly lawmakers suggested the Americans could be suffering from mass hysteria. Here we go again. Remember I said they said all these girls in this high school in New York that got paralyzed said it was mass hysteria and psychological? Here we go again. But in a conference call with Cuba patients last month, Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan ruled out that possibility. So we have the Deputy Secretary of State saying this ain't mass hysteria, this is real. Any suggestion that there's some sort of mass hysteria is simply counterfactual. In the medical community, every doctor I've spoken to about this is unanimous, Sullivan said on the call, according to a recording obtained by NBC News. Listen to this guy. This is the Deputy Secretary of State, John Sullivan. He says it's real, it happened, and that's the set of facts. So our Deputy Secretary of State admits that these women, these people were targeted and they've been harmed. But with the hundreds of diplomatic reporting strange sounds or symptoms, who determines what's real or confirmed? 15 Americans who failed the habit test in China were medevaced to Philadelphia. Here we go, Philadelphia. It's amazing what's going on in Philadelphia right now. What the heck is going on? Is it a mind control facility over there? The Trump administration has never discussed publicly how this determination process works, leaving those who believe they are legitimate cases, but they have been told they are not, with little recourse to challenge the government's findings. U.S. officials involved in the process tell the news that the Penn doctors performed the evaluation and test, diagnosing specific conditions like acquired brain injury and balance disorder. Can you believe this? How do you get an acquired brain injury? How do you acquire? What's an acquired brain injury? You get hit over the head with a baseball bat? They look for the classic presentation of an incident. You know, they hear sounds or they feel sensations, usually coming from one direction, and they develop symptoms within minutes or hours. Okay, here we go again. I'm going to repeat this. The classic presentation of an incident that they call acquired brain injury and balance disorder. The worker began hearing sounds or feel a sensation, usually coming from one direction, and then develop symptoms within minutes or hours. The process is entirely disconnected from the ongoing federal investigation of the attacks. State Department doctors do not take into account FBI interviews. We're looking at this from a purely medical perspective. Physicians treating these Americans would not speak on the record, but one of the doctors recalled telling State Department officials that a China patient had the same symptoms and findings as a Cuba patient, only to see that patient be cleared. And he said the Penn doctors are getting thrown under the bus by the doubting voices in the State Department. Penn wouldn't make any physicians available to answer questions. Here we go. So here, there's no conspiracy here. Unlike Cuba, there's been no drawdown in China. Most of the American diplomatic evacuees have improved enough to resume to work, although they're being put on lighter duties. Folks, hear me on this. This is electromagnetic warfare. These are our government officials and employees and ambassadors. And we cannot tolerate this. You cannot let these people bring this weaponry into our communities, into our homes, into our schools, into our jobs, into public transportation. And that's what they're going to do unless we stop it. Why am I yelling? Why not? All right, this is Joe and Brianna. I might be back tonight. I got things to do tonight. It's Monday. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm glad you stayed through the entirety of this broadcast. This is extremely important. Microwave and millimeter wave systems are weapons. They have been deployed in Cuba, in the embassy, in China, on our State Department officials and Department of Commerce officials, and they have been deployed as test run, dry runs in junior high school in Texas and a high school in New York that I know of. There could be others. And now we've got this paralytic polio scare, right? White matter, gray matter, inflammation of the spinal cord, microwave weaponry, millimeter wave weaponry, nervous system impairment, all this stuff, right? Brain injury, acquired brain injury. How do you acquire a brain injury, folks? Can you believe they got stuff that they can aim at us, that you can feel hit you, and then all of a sudden you can't think, you feel like crap, you puke, and the poor dogs are puking blood? God help us, folks. I want to tell you something. He's all we got. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and you better get behind Almighty God, His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, and He will go before us as we get behind Him. God bless, and we'll talk to you.